I think it's about time that I got to reading this because after I read Farkle's side of the story, I think it is just as important to read the developer side of the story. So, Ouroboros Studio has responded to Farkle's Google document regarding what's been going on with the studios themselves and Sonic Omens and its development and all the other projects they were working on. So there's been a lot of controversy with this developer team, but I never heard or seen of their side of the story. So here's what they had to say all about it. But before I begin reading this, I just want to make a few things clear that this isn't about me taking sides. This is not about me trying to point the finger at anybody. I'm just here for facts, the truth, anything that can potentially clean this up, because I don't know if people flat out hate Ouroboros Studio for Sonic Omens, but yeah, there's a lot of people who just speak ill will of the game, and I'm pretty sure the team as a result. So again, I'm just here for the truth. I'm here for facts. I will be comparing the two documents. It's been a while since I read the other one, but I basically got the gist of it, and this document here will be addressing pretty much, I believe, almost everything that was addressed in the article. So if I notice that something is amiss or there's something that isn't clear to me, I'll state it. If there's anything else that I might have missed or didn't comprehend, I'll take any or all correction. But for this document, I'll just simply read it, give my thoughts as I done with the previous ones. So, Ouroboros team's official statement about another wave of hatred and misfortune. It has come to our attention that about a week ago, a document called Sonic Omens and the Downfall of Ouroboros, created by the user named Farkle, started to get brought up in the social media. The said document's purpose was to spread misinformation by taking the words out of context, bringing up the controversial topics that were solved a long time ago, all designed to attract as much attention to the document as possible. There's a certain irony in the fact that the document has been originally posted through the Sonic Omens account, the account that was created about 2 years ago, presumably to benefit from the hype going on about the project. Considering the attention the document received and people's reactions to it, we have decided to respond to every point mentioned in it as a team, and not personally like we did before. Okay, so I'm guessing there. So now this is coming from the team as a whole. This is not, I'm guessing, the person who wrote this. I don't know if this is a one-person job in terms of writing, but a team effort, I believe, is best effort, just to get the point across about what happened with the development and all the allegations that they're being pointed finger at. So, let's see what's going on here. Criticism and Patreon. First and foremost, we're going to talk about the criticism, starting with the second demo release, the episode Shadow of Water. We have been adding the improvements to the previous chapter in overall gameplay. This approach has been repeatedly applied with each of the next releases, not to mention multiple patches after the release of each demo. The differences can be clearly seen by comparing old gameplay videos of Sonic Omens, previous title Sonic 2020, on YouTube with current ones, and as a result of that comparison, many things are bound to become apparent, such as new and improved homing attack, loss optimization, rebalanced bosses, and other mechanics. A brand new tutorial system, clarification of some frustrating level design, and a lot of other changes. I haven't played the demo. In fact, I never played the demo because I wasn't even aware of, I was, because I think it runs on Infinity. And then the whole game came out, and then a lot of people were talking about it. Some people said it was a masterpiece. Others said that it was just flat out bad. And for the most of it, I'm just seeing a lot of bad things about it. So I don't know if this would imply to the most majority of aspects of the game that people just flat out didn't like, and that was addressed. But I can't really say much about it because after I finished the game, I honestly never touched it again. So I don't know if they made any changes to it. So if they did, then I think the game is worth coming back to. But as it is, No, I'm not aware of any changes or anything like that, aside from some small things here and there. All these improvements happen because we tried our best to check every walkthrough on YouTube and Twitch, and also because the community was involved in the process. You can find hashtag bug underscore report channel, the Discord server, which thankfully has a lot of users active on it. Sure, not everything was done because we are rather new to the game development process, but we did everything we could. Moving on to Patreon, the incident that indeed take place in the past, however, it happened a long time ago. We apologize and are still keeping the promise we made. The only Omens related content we post on our Patreon page is our original content produced for the game by our team. It is important to clarify that we have all legal rights to do this. To back that up, we would like to mention that all of our social media has been checked by the Sega community manager and no violations have been found. And then here's what that looks like right here. Katie Mini Kitty. Hiya, my name's Katie. I manage all things social and community for Sonic the Hedgehog at Sega. I caught wind of a few people mentioning that your Sonic 2020 fan game was being locked behind the paywall on Patreon. I was digging a bit and didn't see any active content on there. So thankfully, if you have already removed that, I'm a huge advocate for Sonic fan games, but if money starts getting involved, then we would need to bring in our legal team, and that's no good. My advice would be to remove the bit in your Patreon description about the fan game, just to completely decouple it from a site that's so closely tied to the paid content. I know it mentions that it will be free. I just want to help make sure that you all are at no risk and that no paid content accidentally slips out there. Thanks again, and best of luck on developing of your games and animations. Several additional points. On the screenshots demonstrated in Farkle's document, you can see the Hyper Tornado, which doesn't belong to Sega, an original in-game location, which does belong to Sega, and a really small Sonic figure, which is fine according to the fair use system. If Sega or the Hyper Tornado authors ask us to remove these pictures, we will do it at first demand. Boosty is a Patreon analog, so every upload there was done with the same rules in mind as for Patreon. So if I understand correctly, and I'm actually thinking about what I said in regards to the movies and animations, which didn't belong to Sega, because the Hyper Tornado debuted in Sonic X, and the location that was built for the Hyper Tornado, the in-game location, I think it was called Wild Ridge, that was just made from the ground up. So that did not exist in any Sonic game that I don't even know. I mean, it's just a canyon area, so I don't think that would warrant any concern. As for the Sonic figure, I believe that they created. I would believe that it is under fair use, because anything that is fan made has to be made by the fans. It can't just be borrowed or taken from any existing source. It has to be from the ground up, just created. So here I can kind of believe that they got in touch with Sega, because they're pretty laid back when it comes to fan games, unlike other companies like say Nintendo or maybe Konami with Mario and Castlevania respectively, because they'll just send out a DMCA notice and just have those taken down. So Sega, I think they're okay when it comes to fan-made projects. As for the Patreon, this kind of brings me back to when Alvin Earthworm or Mark Hines had his Patreon for Super Mario Bros. Z, and Nintendo sent out a DMCA notice about that. And he had to create, I believe, a new Patreon, not for Super Mario Bros. Z, but just for himself, so that all of the money would benefit for him instead of benefiting for his project. And I think that's something that people need to be aware of when making Patreons, when it comes to property that's based off of something that they don't own, is because they'll create these fan projects and then make Patreons for it. and they're basically like people are basically handing out money for these projects based on IPs that the creator doesn't have. So yeah, it's good to know that someone is actually giving them like a heads up about what it is that they're doing and how far they can go, and they're getting in touch with them. So I think that's especially important, because when you're creating something that honestly you don't have, then I feel it's just appropriate to get in touch with them. So I'm actually thinking about the locked content, like the paywall content that they have for the game. I can't tell what that is. I didn't really spend too much time on it, but I think another part of it that might back up this claim is that all the assets from in the game, I think mostly the original stuff, would be somewhat justified. But I say somewhat because, again, if you're just making these assets and just slapping in Sonic on the as the branding, then that could be a huge issue, especially when, yeah, it's fan made, but again, it's based off of something you don't have. So I would say that the Patreon shouldn't benefit Sonic Omens, it should have benefited the team. Other screenshots Farkle demonstrated are taken from the VK.com page from the posts which are public. We have once again gone through our Patreon and Boosty pages, revised all of Sonic Omens related content we posted there, and even removed a couple of posts we deem questionable for the sake of the safety of all sites. And I'm actually gonna skim through some of this because I believe this is something that I've read in the previous. In fact, yeah, this is a screenshot from that doc. Yeah, so what I'm getting from this is just the Patreon for just the team, or Bolt in this case, and doesn't seem like that this was supposed to support Sonic Omens or Sonic 2020 back when it was being made. So then they finished it, they released it, and just said it right there. We have no plans of selling the IP of Sega, an IP they don't have. So no different than what I read previously. Okay, Patreon is meant to be for the creator and not so much for the project, because that's profiting off of someone else's work. Dragon of the Edge. That fan game project wasn't even developed by our studio. You can find all credits on pages belonging to this project, and you won't find our names on our studio name there. The only connection between us and that project was that more than 3 years ago, when we helped to promote it in several videos and shared several 3D models with this project author for free. Bringing that project up was nothing but a cheap attempt at manipulation from Farkle. So I don't know much about this Dragons of the Edge because I wasn't really too focused on that, but when I looked it up, I came across this Reddit post which is more of a review, but the most interesting part is what it says in the first part here. So it says, according to Alexi, they started making the game with zero experience in game development in the Unreal Engine, so the fact that he managed to learn the engine, fix all the codes, and make this amazing demo in a year is really cool to me. The idea they had for the game in the beginning is making it some sort of survival game with alpha dragon fights and stuff. Of course, things got harder and harder over time, and now they don't know exactly what the game will turn out to be. This game isn't licensed, so they can't set up a Patreon to support this project. Only we can support him is by supporting him on YouTube and sharing the demo all around. And here's what the YouTube channel looks like. So I don't know if Ouroboros Studio kind of aided this person with the project, but if they did, more power to them. So I don't really see much dirt on Ouroboros Studio about this. To me, it's just a fan-made How to Train Your Dragon game. And judging by the reception here, it seemed pretty positive. 1 million views, 630,000 views, 450,000 views. So I think it's pretty legitimate. And then I come across this Patreon here. So I'm guessing at the time they didn't have a Patreon, but yeah, here every bit will help me to work on the project. It'll grow over time. So yeah, I don't know if this is something that should be of concern, especially with the company like DreamWorks that made How to Train Your Dragon. But I've heard no controversy about this at all, which is a plus, because I can't really imagine what would go on with this game, this project. So not much to say about this one, other than to me it just feels like a passionate How to Train Your Dragon fan project. Game Jolt adds, thanks to Farkle's document, we are now aware that we've been benefiting from these ads the entire time. The ads are switched off now, and on the screenshot below you can see how much money we made with Sonic Omens. In order to prove the entire community that we have no intention of claiming that money as our own, as well as to support the official Sonic games from Sega, we are going to add a bit of our own money to this amount. Buy a copy of Sonic Origins and make a giveaway event on our Discord server to one of the Sonic fans. The event, as of August 24th, 2022, the event has not taken place yet, but pre-orders for Sonic Frontiers have opened. Most likely it will be a main gift and not Sonic Origins. Honestly, I think that's way better because I've heard positive things about Frontiers and not so much great stuff about Origins, and I'm willing to believe that the $10.84 is meant to be for Frontiers, so that way they're not really getting any money for this project. So the fact that, to me, they weren't aware of the enabling ads on this website, Game Jolt, pretty astonishing to me, because under normal circumstances one would explore the website first and determine what the website is all about and know what it is they're getting themselves into, because I don't know how they didn't know that they had ads enabled or disabled. But yeah, they took Farkle's document as a heads up to flat out disable it. So if it is a mistake on their end, then I believe that it was a mistake. We'll correct it. But for the future, with events like this, I would check everywhere about where they're going, because you don't know when something like this might pop up and then something accidental might happen. So good looking out on Ouroboros Studios in there. Said about the event is, we have not yet found a way to transfer the pre-order, and therefore we wait for the release of Sonic Frontiers in order to hold the event then. Even if it's not possible to find a way to transfer the prize in the current conditions, we will find any other equivalent merch. On the March 2nd of last year, due to the situation in the world, we have not yet been able to find a legal way to purchase and transfer any of the Sega products. We have reserved this $10 until such an opportunity occurs. Unfortunately, these are circumstances that we cannot change. I can't tell exactly what that means. It might be the battle between Russia and Ukraine, Ouroboros Studios being a Russian team and all, but hopefully that they can do something with that money and give it and do something with it that's meaningful, and hopefully they don't repeat a situation where someone had a charity and then the money just sat there. But charity, I don't think this is just them trying to do things right with it and just giving someone, I guess, a well-deserved prize. At least that's how I see it. Cars 2 music, and I would say that this is one of the biggest allegations that I've heard about it, because I honestly questioned it over and over again, and yeah, I still got nothing. Even with the mashup, I can kind of hear it on one or two moments there, but I just don't get it. Like, so here's them cleaning that up, and I'm thanking God they did that, because man, see, part of me is glad that I'm reading this, because I think that Ouroboros Studios, because of that document, just gets flack for it. Like, yeah, I read it, and I'm pretty sure a lot of people did, but now I'm looking at this and feels just one-sided. So once again, I am so glad that I'm seeing the other half of the story here, so that way things can get cleared up. So One of our music composers, John Rice, has been accused of stealing the soundtrack from Cars 2, the video game. First and foremost, we would like to focus on the legal aspect of this accusation. Before being accepted by the label by the distributor and being successfully published on each streaming service and store, each musical track undergoes several checks for containing any copyrighted parts. Taking into account that Area 99 is still available on Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, and other platforms, as well as the fact that the first accusation of plagiarism has been voiced by Farkle more than a year ago, it's safe to assume that the legal system hasn't found any copyright violation in John's track. With that out of the way, let's focus on the musical aspect. Farkle claims that John changed the instruments and claimed that the song was original. According to them, the only thing John made was changing the instruments and leaving everything else the same as in the oil rig track. Let's try and see if that's true. Each track can be split into 3 parts: melodies, rhythm, dynamics, instruments, and genre. Melodies, despite a couple of musical solutions and chosen tonality key being the same, each melody in both tracks develops in its own way. And then I'm pretty sure those are the melodies that I'm seeing right there. Despite it mostly being the same notes, their order and overall structure is different. So any similarities with oil rig found in Area 99 are within genre conventions, common electric guitar techniques, and melodic progressions of this genre. Rhythm dynamics. Despite the fact that both tracks can be described as action music, their beats per minute numbers and rhythmic patterns are different. Overall dynamics are also not the same. Area 99 gives some more fast, tough, and aggressive vibes. I've shared both tracks with other people, and even they couldn't make heads or tails of it. So when I listened to both Area 99 and Oil Rig, again, there were rare moments within the soundtracks where they sound similar, but Area 99 just feels more like they say here, more fast, tough, aggressive vibes, because Sonic is literally breaking into a military compound. And then there's Oil Rig, which I did hear. In fact, there are actually 2 versions of that song, because as I was scrolling through more Oil Rig music, I discovered that there's actually a second rendition of that soundtrack with more added instrumentals. So I don't know if that could potentially mean that there was another version of the song that Farkle listened to that made him think that it sounded like Area 99, but I listened to them back to back. I got nothing, like absolutely nothing. So like even when I was playing the game, I listened to it during gameplay, and still like nothing. So, and I was questioning the instruments too, which instruments genre. Both tracks are done in the same rock genre, which means the main instruments are the same: live drums, bass, guitar, and a couple electric guitars. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, same instruments, different beats. And I just kept questioning it, and the more I did, the more I started doubting it, just more and more. How is it that Area 99 sounds like Oil Rig? And I'm just not hearing it. Funny enough, after taking a closer look, it just becomes apparent that every point that Farkle mentioned in their document regarding this topic is the exact opposite of reality. They said John changed the instruments when the main instruments are literally the same. They say that the melody and rhythm aren't changed, they were. That can't be called an expert opinion. In our opinion, it's merely another excuse to hate on the team. So it's another baseless accusation by Farkle. And I've heard music before that sounds similar to another one. In fact, the only instance that I can think of where a homage to another track was deliberate would have been from David Wise when he composed Bayou Boogie for Donkey Kong Country 2, where he tries to replicate the introduction of Phil Collins coming in the air tonight. I can actually see where David Wise is trying to go with it. And then there's that one soundtrack from Cuphead that sounds like Super Mario World. So it's not really that rare to hear music sound identical to one another. There's a whole YouTube channel about all of that where you hear music and it sounds oddly familiar to something else. Think of a song, like literally any song that sounds like Elect Man, like literally anyone, or Flash Man, like either one of those, and you can just hear it on the top of your head. So again, I'm not really trying to point the finger at anybody here, but when he brought up why does it sound like this soundtrack, and it could be that one instance where it reminded them of this one track in particular, but to accuse them for it rather than just questioning it, I would have just questioned them about the track instead of just flat out pointing the finger at them, so that it wouldn't just paint them as the bad guys, just ripping someone off here. And then there was the whole copyright claim or strike from John Rice that was also in the document, and I think that's something that should be addressed, because who exactly were these people that were getting claimed or struck, unless they were just misusing the music? So yeah, ownership here should be kept strict, but not to the point where people are severely punished for it. Like a good slap on the wrist would have been just fine, but instead, it's all this finger pointing, the accusing, and that's what leads to documents like this just being written. And yeah, this is something that I'm pretty sure nobody needs. Maria texture, here's another important one. Maria's model was created by the outsourced 3D modeling specialist Eva Musidu, and that texture was her personal joke that was, according to her words, based on the underwear popular in Ukraine in her younger years. The joke had no negative background or intention. Although unintentional, this texture is in the game build 3.0.0, and despite the fact that it's impossible to see it during the gameplay, it will be addressed in the upcoming update. And then here's the Discord post right here. So who made that texture? And yeah, that's her saying I made. So that was a little bit of concern, but at the same time, this is probably no different than trying to look up a girl's skirt in a video game, something that people have done in Super Smash Bros. Brawl, when trying to look up, say, like Peach's dress, or any female's like outfit for that matter. And I would say that I wasn't really too bothered by it, but the one thing that I wanted to bring up here, and I'm pretty sure this document bring it up. Actually, I don't think it does. The undergarment says "bad girl" on it, so I don't know if. Oh God. I don't know if this is something that goes on in Ukraine where you get undergarments. Like, why the fuck am I even talking like this? Like, seriously. I apologize, everybody, but this is a sensitive topic and not really one that I wanted to focus too much about. But part of me just feels like this is absolutely ridiculous to just focus on. I mean, it's still stupid enough that Maria is in the game because, I played the game and then I just questioned, why is Shadow going through all these hallucinations? Why is Maria a boss fight? All of that I was focusing on more than what Maria was wearing, even if it was undergarments that said "bad girl" on it. So I feel like that should have been addressed, because even though I personally didn't really care that much, I'm pretty sure this Farkle person did, because he saw the assets and he, I guess, just didn't like what he saw, and then just made the accusation that people who made this were a bunch of creeps, just making these underwear assets and then just labeling "bad girl" on it. I just looked past it and was questioning why Maria was in the game. I honestly couldn't care less about what she was wearing underneath. I mean, it's not a bad Maria model. I've seen worse, Maria and Shadow the Hedgehog, but what the fuck, man? That is, oh boy, that is so sensitive to me that I just wouldn't mention it. But to me, it's just somebody who, no different, looks up other character models and then sees, what's going on underneath. Usually it's just, and I've been noticing this in other games as well, where game devs would patch the game so that looking up girls' skirts would be impossible. Rather, it's just black nothingness, or it's just a fixed camera angle. I mean, the only game that I can think of where players can intentionally look up a character's dress is in Nier Automata, where you look up 2B's dress, and bonus points if you're doing that for a trophy or an achievement, because you have to look up 2B's dress 10 times and you get the "what are you doing" trophy and achievement. That's the only time that I can think of where anyone can freely look up anyone's dress and 2B would react to it. But this to me is just fucking ridiculous. Censorship drama. We would like to make it clear that the moderators of our social media have never banned people for negative opinions. People have only been banned for toxicity and raid attacks against us. which is a direct violation of our community rules. Unfortunately, there were enough people who were rude, blamed, or insulted our players, subscribers, and developer team. But despite all that, sometime later, we have decided to give all of the team the second chance to become a part of the community. Be confirmed, and before the upcoming August release of Nvidia Sonic Omens, while there is still time to look through the materials already released, we decided to make a big amnesty for those who were banned from June 2021 to February 2022. We hope to see you no longer blacklisted by our community. So at the very least, they're giving these people a second chance, because I get that people who are toxic and who are raiders, it's bittersweet and not really something that should happen. But when action needs to be taken, then by all means, take it. So yeah, in the words of Iroh,
I believe in second chances.
and that's what I'm seeing here, is that they just gave them a second chance, and hopefully they will behave, and to the point where they can just not behave rationally and actually just be more considerate of others. Because when you're in a Discord server, or any community for that matter, you got to take consideration of other people, and just offer the greatest amount of respect you can, even if it's for a fan game such as this. So for that point, Farkle deliberately changed the context. So I actually went back to Farkle's Google document just so I can look back and make any comparisons. And it says here, in the past, John has copyright struck people for re-uploading his music or making remixes or mashups. Now, a re-upload of his soundtrack would make sense, because that's his original work, and re-uploading it on your channel and claiming it as yours is never an okay thing to do. As for remixes or mashups, I feel like that should be fine. The only problem that the composer has to put up with is when people re-upload their content and claim it as their own. And then I go to this here about the censorship drama. It's just somebody reviewing the game, and yeah, like the whole comment section is in Russian here, so I honestly can't make much of this. But then he goes on to say that over 167 people were blocked, with the associated people who were either being toxic or just being raiders. Ouroboros decided to unban those people who were being negative, not just for their opinions, but just violating the rules. So that way they could have people continue supporting the game and giving feedback and anything like that. So I'm not entirely sure what the debacle was going on between Farkle and Ouroboros, other than the username that he was going by and how that was potentially violating the rules. So they gave them multiple chances, and they just decided to, I believe it was, to ban him. So again, I can't be entirely sure, because I wasn't even aware mostly of all the negativity that was going on and the people been getting banned in the Discord server. The only thing I was focused on are what was going on with the team regarding the development of Sonic Omens and the game itself. And to me, that feels like two different things, but I constantly said this is a game that was made out of spite. I can, based on what I've read and what I've seen, I was just basing it off of that, and I just followed by what was going on, behind the scenes. So I'm actually thinking about it now. Do I think that Sonic Omens is truly a game made out of spite? And even though I was just going by, what was said and what I read about it, I kind of believe that, because when I'm looking at, say, the Tree Palace and the Maria boss fight, and God forbid me, and this is a personal matter, the fucking 4Kids version of the Sonic X soundtrack. Yes, I'm gonna keep bringing that shit up. I don't know if they actually went back and then they thought to themselves, okay, we need to start changing some things here because there's some parts of this level design that just don't add up. Like, even Weeping Rift wasn't that good either. So I don't know if they just designed it and thought it was okay, but okay levels, they're not. And that's what led me to believe that, yeah, this was a game made out of spite, because look at all the bullshit they had to go through. Look at all the hazards they're implementing, pretty much everything. And then I'm looking at other people playing the game, and they're also suffering because of it. And, I played it myself just so I can develop my own honest impression about it. And what I've been seeing is, in the beginning, it starts off pretty nice. You have Chow Paradise. Some of the boss fights take a while to get accustomed to them. You have Area 99, which starts showing off its hazardous side of the game, and then you get levels like White Jungle and Waterfall Chase, which are actually pleasant to go through for the most part. And then you get levels like United Railroad, which doubles down on the hazards, and then you get the Maria boss fight, which, why did they even bother with that? In Weeping Rift, the last tornado level was just pure misery at its finest, at its worst, actually. That's what led me to think that, yeah, this was made out of spite. No different than, it actually kind of reminds me of, what was that Bubsy game where people just made the game bad on purpose because they just flat out hated it? It almost kind of reminds me of that, where in the studio, there were plushies of Bubsy either hung or there was a pencil through his eye, and they just kept mocking the character. They just flat out hated it. Like, I remember hearing a digital gaming video about it, and people just didn't like making the Bubsy games back then, and they just made, I think it was the third one, just how it was. And yeah, no, it just, like, nah, yeah, Bubsy just did not get a break until like 20 years after Bubsy 3D. And with this game, how it's developed really just brings that issue home of, was it made out of spite? Because I'm looking at all of the design choices, and some of them, if not most of them, aren't good. Like, again, I can actually see where people were frustrated with it and why they were angry. I don't know if people can actually go back to Sonic Omens and say that it wasn't that bad. I don't know if I would ever go back to stages like Tree Palace or Weeping Rift or the Maria boss fight and say this was good. Obviously not. Like, the Maria boss fight is just the lowest point of the game. That, in fact, I would say most of episode 6, if it wasn't for Citadel of the Lotus. Like, most of the Citadel of the Lotus suffers through camera angles where Sonic is running in those quick step sections, most notably when the level starts. And then there's the electric traps where if he touches them, then that's an instant death right there. Then there's all the Meta-Wrecks. Like, Citadel of the Lotus, I can see it potentially being good, but then it gets jogged down, just getting held back by all of those hazards, whether it be those electric floors, the swarm of Meta-Wrecks, all of that. So that's what led me to believe, yeah, this was a game made out of spite, because look at all the bullshit that I'm seeing here. So that, honestly, I don't know if that would be clouding my judgment or if that was the honest impression that I was seeing from people, but I can't deny what's in the game and how it was made. That's basically where I stand with how I feel about it and how that could reflect the team. Because if they were certain on accepting feedback and improving the product, then, it also makes me question, what was going on with the ideas of certain levels that they implemented in the final build here. So, they made these levels, but they really should not have made them the way they were, and then people just get frustrated about it. And speaking of frustration, Eggman's VA Sumishkin is a good friend of ours. No conflict has ever arisen between us. It is a common thing between gamers to poke fun at each other, especially when they are friends. After his rage quit, we messaged him, laugh at the whole matter, and a few days later we're having fun together at the fan convention called Super Sonic Con. I don't think I've ever heard of that. We do not understand what point Farkle was trying to make, but it is clear to us that they either didn't have a complete picture of the situation or deliberately took away the parts of it. So I actually I showed it off briefly, but I kind of understand what Farkle was bringing up about the whole Samishkin getting enraged, and I think he was playing the Maria boss fight, if I understood correctly, because they, like, again, and going back to when I was thinking about the game made out of spite, is that they saw him play it and him just getting frustrated about it, and I honestly just couldn't believe that their own voice actor for Eggman was struggling that hard and they just laughed it off as a joke. Like, personally, I don't know how I would laugh at that, because if he's just getting frustrated about it, then, you know, why laugh it off and treat it as a joke? Like, to me, especially when you're talking with the devs about this, I wouldn't treat that as a laughing matter. And, you know, it's great they're friends with them, you know, more power to them, but for that, I would have just had second thoughts about what it is that he was going through, and seeing that he was struggling with the boss fight in question. To me personally, that isn't a laughing matter. I would have just, you know, back to the drawing board for this is what I would have just done, instead of just leaving it there, because I've seen other people struggle with that same thing. The Maria boss fight is not fun. It's not fun at all, and some people were actually surprised that Maria were actually in this. Some of them were speechless.
This should not be happening. Should not be happening.
I agree, Shadow. What in the world? We're fighting Maria? Whoa! How? What is happening? What? What? I have like 5 things to say right now.
This should not be.
We're fighting Maria? What is this? Why are we fighting Maria? Why is she even here?
Like, who comes up with these ideas here? And I constantly go back to the game over and over and over again. That's just how I feel. Whatever the team put out must be reflecting something. Like, there's just something in me that says that. I can't tell what it is. Like, I cannot get it out of my head. I just can't. So, like, I wouldn't treat that as a laughing matter, honestly. But you know, they said that after his rage quit, they messaged him and laughed at the whole matter, and a few days later, so what, they just laughed it off like it was supposed to be, I don't know if that was supposed to be like a joke, or they actually got humor out of that. Like, was it the counter rage where he was having so much difficulty just going through the whole thing, or was it in a way that, like, actually, let me rephrase that. Were they laughing at him, or were they laughing because of what was happening? Like, they weren't really poking fun at him. They just saw what was going on and they were just laughing because of it. Like, they found the whole situation of him getting raged humorous rather than him getting raged humorous, if that makes any sense. But either way, for me, I would have just saw that and just said to myself, yeah, this Maria boss fight is fucked up. We gotta change it. And honestly, they should have changed it. I mean, it's still fucking stupid that Maria is a boss fight anyways. You know, Shadow put the past behind him. See, I'm more focused about the content of the game than, you know, the morality of the team. But the morality of the team, I cannot ignore. But again, I think about the team and I think about the game they put out and how that is relatable. And when I actually see that, you know, I start asking questions. And then a lot of people start asking questions, and then, you know, shit like this happens with these fucking documents here. The personal accusations from Farkle. We are usually against putting any personal confrontations into the internet. However, this time we don't see the way around it. So let us start from the beginning. Back in 2020, Farkle joined our old Discord server, Media Team server, and appeared to have malicious intentions from the start. He had been warned and sometime later kicked from the server for making a scam accusation, which was displayed in his status message. Got kicked for no reason. Sonic 2020 is a scam. Sometime later, Farkle uploaded a video on their YouTube channel, Sparkle Gem, in which the author, through trying to show the developer team in a bad light, encouraged people to refrain from supporting the game. And then there's the proof right there. And then here's the video right here. Thank God it's in English. It is a rather interesting coincidence that shortly after the publishing of the Sonic Omens The Downfall of Ouroboros document that the video became unlisted. After all, it shows the proof that Farkle was going after Bolt and was based his accusations in the online piracy before the development of Sonic 2020 even began. Considering what has been said, as well as the fact that Farkle's Discord server has a channel called Sonic Omens Leaks, it is safe to assume that Farkle is deliberately going after Bolt, the dev team, and anyone who appreciates our work. And this has been going on for more than 3 years by now. It is true that sometimes our responses to Farkle's actions were rude. However, that only goes to show that there are just the regular people behind the fancy team logo picture. At this point in time, we can see that Farkle's actions cross the reasonable lines, and would like to point out that it might be unwise to expect an unbiased and complete information from such a person. It is disappointing to see that many community members, as well as some journalists, are quick to jump on any controversial information, yet aren't as quick to turn to our team for answers. Before you choose to spread and support the documents of some kind, we advise you to double check that you're not being a partaker of somebody's personal vendetta. And honestly, I would have to agree with this statement here, because what matters most is hearing the story on both sides. And I feel like that Ouroboros Studio has provided that for the most part, because I would still like to know what was going on with the copyright claims that John Reyes was handing out. And, you know, all this, not that I care that much, but I'm just going to get this out the way. The whole bad girl situation with the undergarments. Not that I focus on that, but it was something that Farkle pointed out. And I think I would be more interested in the copyright claims side of the story here, you know, aside from YouTube's stupid copyright policies, but just because handing out copyright claims or strikes really paints a dark message for people unless they're in the right to do so. So if there was a violation on the user's part, then I believe it is to the interest of the creator in question to hand out said claims or strikes, as long as they're valid, because chances are you may run into another CBS situation where they're handing out copyright claims to anyone that's talking shit about the Halo TV show. Because I still remember that, and Angry Joe got pissed about it, and he said, okay, keep doing this and we're going to court. And, you know, it can come down to that, and hopefully it won't. So for Farkle here, I don't know anything about this YouTube person here, but aside from all the Spark the Electric Jester influence, obviously, and a little bit of Freedom Planet here, but I don't think that he was painting a dark message deliberately. I mean, he basically did, but the way that he was going about it felt convincing, or at the very least was convincing, because when I see the Patreon, when I see the censorship, when I see how the game was released and how the game turned out, people were quick to jump on that bandwagon and then start pointing the finger at Ouroboros, and then Ouroboros had to respond to it just to state the facts here, the facts that I'm seeing right here. So I didn't even know too much about the Discord server. The only things I knew about it was the Twitter account, and that was basically it in terms of their social media, because had I known about the Discord server, I would have listed it in the videos of the game that I played in that description. But yeah, so far the only things I know about Ouroboros Studio are their original projects in Sonic Omens, and I'm assuming their partnership of Dragon of the Edge, which wasn't made by them, made by some other people. But yeah, I feel like that it is very important to do a lot of digging first before you start accusing people of something that they may or may not have done. So I have no ill will towards any of these factions here, not for Farkle, not for Ouroboros Studio. I'm just here to just put the pieces together and try to figure out the brighter picture here, because now that I'm seeing this response, last time I said that this was just cyberbullying at its purest, and I'm still feeling that. I can actually feel the cyberbullying by reading this, and then at one point I thought it was from Ouroboros Studio, then after reading this it was coming from Farkle, and it's like just these ongoing clashes just keep going back and forth, and without much of a clarification. So Ouroboros in this document have expressed that about their boundaries, about their morals, their standards in regards to their publicity, whether it be the Patreon or the Discord, or with their friend, which still just bothers me a little bit that I can't tell if they were just laughing at him or laughing because of him. I'm not entirely sure, but for me personally, if I were a game dev, I would just take that as a bad sign about the product that the man was going through. Okay, if I seen anyone raging it apart, then I would have just said, okay, well, I'm taking this back and see what I can do to improve it. Now, I'm not even gonna point to that person and just say good. No, like, I would have just been observant and been more considerate. That's basically how anyone should be when it comes to releasing a product and changing a product to make sure it's the best that it can possibly be. But yeah, judging by what I'm seeing here, it just feels that more information needed to be found in order to make that Google document, the downfall of Ouroboros. And then now that they're saying that this was unlisted, and yes, it is still unlisted, as I see right there. And then that's Ouroboros Studio's response right there, I believe, with something in Russian that I honestly can't understand. Taking our history with Farkle into consideration, we expect more of the dubious accusations being thrown our way. However, this document is our first and final response of this kind, and its main purpose is to offer the answers to those few who actually ask questions. We would like to apologize for the late response. Our team was on a trip to SuperSonicCon to present the final episodes, so we were absent from the 11th to the 19th of August. Now that we have given the answers to the questions our community seems to be the most interested in, we are going to go back to our main responsibilities as game developers, applying fixes to the game according to the feedback we have received from our community. Thank you for reading this document to the very end. If you still have more questions, you like to ask, we'll be looking forward to welcoming you on our Discord server. And then there's the Discord server right there, and then there's people playing the game. I strongly believe that they were able to provide the answers accordingly here. And, you know, judging by the screenshots here, you know, people are engaged playing the game and everything else. I'm not really aware of the supersonic gun, but yeah, from what I've heard from the game reviews from YouTube, most people, I would say, are pretty mixed about it. I would say positive to mixed would be the most appropriate response about this. But to me, I do still get a sense of cyberbullying from this, and it's really quite unfortunate that I get a feeling of cyberbullying from this, because this is a team that just wanted to make something, I guess, for the fans, if that was the intention. And someone out there dug up what they thought was them in the wrong and made the Google document about it, from getting banned from the Discord server to the monetization of IP they didn't own, to, you know, the whole morality of the situation just going all out of whack here. And, you know, and once again, I brought it up, there's a QR code in the game where if you scan it, it'll take you to the Patreon. So all of that just led me to believe all of the bad things that was happening with this game, with this team, and then the team actually responded. And like I said, for the most of it, I would still like to know more about, you know, the bad girl stuff, even though I know that's just, you know, the ridiculous side of things, and then the whole copyright claims from John Rise, and what's been going on with this Sumishkin, I apologize for botching your name, just all of that, and them just coming clean. Because to me, after I read that document, it was guilty until proven innocent, and I can still see some innocence in this team. But I mean, because of that, and because of what's been going on in the game, it really does paint a dark message to Ouroboros. So I don't have much to say about this team, because I just, you know, like most of us, just knew them through Sonic Omens. And then when the game came out, I saw what it is they made, and just went by the mindset of they made it out of spite because of how the game was made and all the bullshit that people went through when playing the game. And then you get other people saying it was a masterpiece. So it was so conflicting to me. That's basically all that it was. And I feel like that, yeah, a much clearer picture was needed, so that way people can better understand the situation. And I feel like that the image is more clear, but I feel like some bits and pieces still need to be addressed. So with all that, I do appreciate Ouroboros Studio from speaking up and cleaning up all of this, so that way there's more clarity in what's been going on between this team and Farkle. And after this, I just want to say that if there's ever a time where you're suspicious about anybody or anything, it's always important to do the basic research first, so that shit like this just doesn't happen. So if by any means, because of my reading of this or my reading of the other Google document, has offended anybody or upset anybody, just know that that was not my intention. I was just going off by my personal impressions and just trying to figure things out. That's pretty much all that it was. Sonic Omens as a game proves that 3D Sonic games do have what it takes to match the quality of games that were put up by Sonic Team, either games like Colors, Generations, or perhaps even Frontiers. I've not seen Frontiers because I have long since removed myself from this franchise, but Sonic Omens to me proves that it is possible to create fan games that looks professional and looks like it did come from Sonic Team, that it could be officially licensed by Sega. So for that, I commend them. But because of all the nasty shit that was happening, I really do feel like that it paints both the game and the team a bad message. And when I actually play the game and how it progresses, I can actually see and feel why I felt that way. So like this was a behemoth to tackle, but I'm glad that I tackled it. So yeah, with all this said, if anyone has not checked out the game yet, please do so that way you can develop your own honest impressions about it. And don't be so quick to just judge people based on what they may or may not have done, because necessary research is required for something like this so that this type of shit doesn't happen.